Have you ever found yourself staring at that small, silent icon on your screen? The one that says read? That moment when your heart sinks just a little? The invisible clock starts ticking and the carefully crafted message you sent, the one filled with vulnerability or hope or simple affection, just hangs there, unanswered. You feel a knot tighten in your stomach. Was it something you said? Are they mad? Are they with someone else? Or maybe the most painful thought of all, do they just not care enough? We are so conditioned to believe that love is a constant, a flowing river of communication and reassurance. We're taught that in a good relationship, a healthy one, there are no unanswered questions, no long silences, no unread receipts that feel like a verdict. But the reality is, in the digital age, we are left to interpret the void. The absence of a reply becomes a canvas for our deepest insecurities to paint a picture of rejection and neglect. It's a silent, modern form of ghosting that happens while a person is still very much in your life. It's a message that was received and acknowledged, but not worthy of a response. This is where we dive in. At Love Threads, we don't just talk about relationships. We deconstruct them. We blend authentic, grounded insights with robust, evidence-based psychology, giving you the real intelligence on why we connect, why we sometimes misstep, and how to truly thrive when love feels like a constantly shifting landscape. Tonight, we're unraveling the phenomenon of the unanswered reply and the profound, often unconscious journey to break free from the threads that hold us just shy of true reciprocal connection. The dilemma. We are living in a world of unprecedented digital intimacy, where a few taps on a screen can bridge continents and hearts in an instant. Yet, despite this seamless connectivity, we've never felt more profoundly isolated. The central dilemma we face today is not a lack of communication tools, but a profound and painful miscommunication of value. We have been handed a map of instant connection, but no compass to navigate the emotional maze it creates. The read receipt is a double-edged sword. It offers the promise of a known status, a certainty that your words have landed, but it also creates a new, more insidious form of psychological limbo. It is a digital echo chamber where we're left to listen to the silence of someone who heard us but chose not to speak back. This silent response is a modern-day mirror, reflecting back to us all the fears we hold about our own worthiness. It asks us, in the most piercing way, am I important enough to be prioritized? Do I matter enough to be acknowledged? The wound it touches isn't about the message itself, but about a deeper, more primal fear of being unseen and unheard. It is the echo of a child's cry that went unanswered, the invisible wound of a soul that learned its voice wasn't important. The person on the other end of the screen may be distracted, busy, or thoughtless, but to the one waiting, their silence is a profound statement. It is the void in the middle of a crowded room, the empty space where love should be, but where only doubt resides. This isn't just about an unreturned text. It's about the ghost of our own past re-emerging in a new digital form. The lack of a response becomes a haunting algorithm, a pattern of perceived neglect that we internalize, making us question our own reality and emotional landscape. It's the great irony of our time that the very technology meant to bring us closer can create a distance so vast that it feels like a breakdown not just of a conversation, but of our very sense of self. This isn't merely a technological inconvenience, it's a deeply personal one. The read receipt, a cold, unfeeling data point, becomes a symbol of our vulnerability. The wait is a silent test, one we feel we are failing by the second. The psychological loop is self-perpetuating.
The silence triggers a memory of past hurts, which fuels anxiety, and that anxiety in turn makes the silence even more unbearable. It is the void in the middle of our digital lives, a space where our deepest fears about connection and belonging are given free rein to flourish. It's the modern human condition, a constant longing for connection in a world that offers an illusion of it, but often withholds the genuine emotional reciprocity we desperately need.
The unanswered call of the heart. We see this dilemma woven into the fabric of countless lives. It's not a single story, but a series of archetypal narratives that echo across time and technology. Each one speaks to a different facet of the same core wound, the fear of being insignificant, of being too much, or of not mattering enough. Let's explore these narratives, not as stories of others, but as reflections of your own potential journey to understand the deeper personal contracts you bring into your connections. The story of the hero with the unrequited map. As the hero, you approach love with a sacred contract to be fully present, to give your all, and to prove your worth through tireless effort. Your soul's agreement is that if you can just try hard enough, if you can be the one to overcome every obstacle and bridge every gap, you will finally be seen and rewarded with the love you seek. You believe the path to a strong relationship is paved with vulnerability and clear communication. You see yourself as the emotional leader, the one who takes the brave first step. You send a heartfelt message, a bid for connection, a map to your inner world. You lay it all out, your hopes for the weekend, a moment of genuine concern for your partner's day, a tiny inside joke meant to spark a shared memory. The message is not a demand, but an offering of intimacy. You wait, your phone an extension of your heart, a digital tether to the person you want to be close to. The moments pass, and a subtle but undeniable anxiety begins to tighten its grip. You check your phone again. The small, silent notification confirms the message was received, read, but still, the reply never comes. Now you face your greatest adversary, the blank space. It's an empty canvas where your heroic efforts are left unacknowledged. In your sacred contract, you learned that your value was tied to your efforts. The unreciprocated effort, the unreturned gesture, feels like a profound betrayal of this contract, not just by your partner, but by the universe itself. Your inner voice begins a painful, familiar monologue. Was I too much? Did I say the wrong thing? Maybe I should have been cooler, less eager. You begin to question your own map, your own quest, your own worthiness. You are the hero who finds the treasure of your own vulnerability only to have it vanish in your hands. The silence of the other person is the dragon you can't defeat because it's not an external foe, it's a reflection of your deepest fear of being inadequate. It's a shame-filled confirmation that all your striving, all your efforts were simply not enough. The story of the oracle and the unread prophecy. Consider the archetype of the oracle, the one who reads between the lines, who anticipates needs, and who offers wisdom and insight. You are deeply empathetic, almost clairvoyant in your ability to sense the emotional currents in relationships. Your sacred contract is to be the emotional anchor, the one who provides foresight and stability. You believe your value comes from your emotional labor, from being the one who holds it all together, the one who sees what others miss. You live by the principle that if you can just understand and anticipate the needs of others, you will be safe and loved. You sense your partner's emotional strain after a long day and send a thoughtful text, a prophecy of support before they even ask. You offer a simple message of encouragement, a comforting word, or a suggestion to do something relaxing together. The message is a carefully crafted offering of your insight, a lifeline cast before the storm. You wait for the confirmation, the reply that says, "You saw me, thank you."
The digital timestamp shows that it was seen, but the validation of a response is denied. The silence that follows is not just empty, it feels like a refutation of your very purpose. In the sacred contract of the oracle, your power and identity are tied to your ability to foresee and assist. You believe your emotional intelligence is your greatest asset. The lack of a reply, the silent dismissal of your insight, isn't just a disappointment, it's a direct challenge to your identity. It's as if the world is saying, your vision is not needed, your wisdom is not valued. The oracle's prophecy, sent into the digital void, becomes a painful confirmation of your most secret fear, that your deep emotional intelligence is a burden, not a gift. You are left to question whether your sacred contract to see and feel so deeply is a blessing or a curse. The internal dialogue turns accusatory. I saw this coming. I knew I would be left alone with my feelings. I should have kept my insight to myself. The silent reply feels like a punishment for being so emotionally exposed and for a gift that no one else values. The oracle's inner light begins to dim and you start to build walls, sealing off the very sensitivity that defines you.
There is also the archetype of the warrior, who enters relationships with a sacred contract to be strong, to defend, and to protect. You believe that true love is built on a foundation of mutual respect and clear, honorable communication. You see yourself as a partner who will fight for the relationship, but you expect your partner to be an equal in that fight. The silent treatment, the ambiguity of a text left unread, is not just a personal slight, it's a direct challenge to your code of honor. For you, silence is a passive form of aggression, a refusal to engage in the noble battle of communication. You send a message, perhaps a direct question about a conflict you had, or a clear statement of your feelings. It's a bid for resolution, a challenge to your partner to meet you in the arena of honest dialogue. You expect a swift response, a clear sign of engagement, a confirmation that you are in this together, facing the issue head on. But the reply never comes. The read receipt is a cold, indifferent banner of victory for the other person, a signal that they have chosen to retreat from the battlefield entirely. The warrior's sacred contract is that all conflicts must be faced and resolved. The unacknowledged challenge, the silence where a fight should be, doesn't just frustrate you, it enrages you. It makes you feel like you are fighting an invisible enemy, a ghost of an opponent who refuses to show up at all. You begin to question your own strength. Is my partner so weak that they cannot face me? Or is my challenge so insignificant that it doesn't even warrant a response? The silence feels like a dismissal of your very being, a profound disrespect. It is a violation of the sacred contract you hold most dear. The unanswered message becomes a painful confirmation that your honor has been disrespected and that you are fighting a war of words alone against an opponent who won't even acknowledge the challenge. This archetypal wound leaves the warrior feeling not just hurt, but deeply betrayed, and can cause you to withdraw into a fortress of silence yourself, unwilling to engage in a battle that only you are willing to fight.
Finally, there is the innocent, the archetype who approaches love with a childlike trust and optimism. You see the best in everyone and believe in the inherent goodness of connection. Your sacred contract is one of pure, unfiltered joy. You believe that love should be simple, light, and without pretense. For you, connection is a source of spontaneous delight, a free-flowing exchange of light and laughter. You send a simple, joyful text, a picture of a funny street sign that made you smile, a spontaneous expression of your love with a heart emoji. You expect a playful, equally joyful response, a mirror reflecting your own happiness back to you. But you receive silence. The innocent's sacred contract is to believe in the goodness of the world and the purity of connection. When you see the read receipt and nothing more, your entire worldview is shattered. The mirror you held up, hoping to see a reflection of your own light and love, shows nothing but a blank, unforgiving screen. The silence doesn't just hurt. It creates a profound confusion. It contradicts your entire belief system about how love works. This isn't a battle or a prophecy. It's the gentle, painful death of an ideal. The unanswered message becomes a tangible symbol of a broken promise, not one explicitly made by your partner, but one you believed was inherent in the act of connection itself. The digital silence teaches you a lesson you never wanted to learn, that even in the most innocent moments, love can be conditional, temporary, and absent. The innocence you hold so dear begins to feel like a vulnerability, a weakness that can be easily exploited. The silent reply becomes a painful initiation into a world that doesn't always reflect back the love you so freely give. And it is a loss of innocence you will carry forward into every future interaction, making you more cautious and less willing to be so freely and openly joyful.
Psychological depth and education. The pain of the unanswered message is not a new emotional experience. It's a timeless human dilemma amplified by modern technology. To understand why it hurts so deeply, we must journey into the intricate landscapes of our own minds, our nervous systems, and the ancestral patterns that shape us. What feels like a simple moment of digital neglect is in reality a deeply personal and often unconscious triggering of our relational history. Attachment theory and the wounded inner child. At the core of this ache is attachment theory, the foundational blueprint for how we relate to others. Our adult reactions to an unanswered message are often direct echoes of our earliest experiences with our primary caregivers. This silent communication sends a jolt through our nervous system, activating a survival response that was wired into us long before we ever held a phone. For someone with an anxious attachment style, the silent message is a profound trigger for their greatest fear, abandonment. As a child, their caregivers may have been inconsistent, sometimes available and warm, other times distant or preoccupied. This created a deep-seated fear that love was conditional and could be withdrawn at any moment. When a message goes unanswered, their nervous system immediately reverts to a state of high alert. The silence feels like the first sign of a withdrawal of love. Their internal monologue becomes a frantic search for what they did wrong, a desperate attempt to reestablish a connection that feels precarious. They may send a second text or a third, a desperate bid for a connection, not because they're needy, but because their internal survival blueprint tells them that silence equals danger. This behavior is a desperate attempt to regulate emotions by controlling their external environment, a negative cycle that emotionally focused therapy would describe as a protest polka, a frantic dance of pursuit and withdrawal. In contrast, someone with an avoidant attachment style may also be triggered, but their reaction is fundamentally different. Their caregivers were often emotionally unavailable, teaching them to suppress their needs and become fiercely independent. The unanswered message might initially be met with a cold silence or a swift compartmentalization. They might tell themselves, "I don't need them anyway," or "I'm better off alone." But beneath this outward indifference is a deep, unacknowledged wound. The silence confirms their belief that closeness is unsafe and that people will ultimately disappoint them. They see the unanswered text as proof that their decision to keep others at arm's length was justified. It's a painful validation of their deepest fear that intimacy is a trap that will inevitably lead to betrayal and disappointment. This behavior serves as a protective shield, but it also reinforces their pattern of emotional isolation, creating a self-fulfilling prophecy where they push away the very connection they secretly crave. Finally, the disorganized attachment style, often born from traumatic and unpredictable childhoods, is thrown into a state of chaotic emotional dysregulation. The unanswered message is not just a trigger for fear, but for an entire system of conflicting feelings. They may feel a frantic urge to reach out, but also an overwhelming desire to push the person away before they can be hurt further.
They are trapped in a push-pull dynamic, where the lack of a response feels both a confirmation of their worst fears and a reason to flee. Their nervous system, wired for threat detection, sees the silence as a sign of betrayal, even when it's not. This is a highly dysregulated state where a person can swing between extremes of rage, desperation, and total withdrawal, unable to find a stable emotional ground. For a person with a secure attachment style, the reaction is vastly different. While they might feel a moment of mild disappointment or curiosity, they do not immediately internalize the silence as a rejection of their worth. Their nervous system remains regulated. They are able to think rationally. They're probably busy. I'll hear from them later. This is the blueprint of a person who had consistent, reliable care in childhood. This secure base allows them to tolerate ambiguity and sit with uncertainty without their entire sense of self unraveling. The secure style serves as a powerful reminder of what is possible on the other side of healing. Family systems and systemic entanglements. The pain of the unanswered message also has roots that stretch far beyond our own lives, into the intricate web of our family systems. Our relational patterns are not just personal, they are inherited. The silence of the unreturned text can be a systemic entanglement, a loyalty to an unresolved family dynamic, a concept explored through the lens of family constellations. Consider the family where emotional neglect was the norm. A parent was always working, always distracted, and emotional needs were not met. As a child, you learned that your feelings were not important enough to be acknowledged. You learned to be quiet, to not make a fuss, to not ask for too much. In your adult relationships, an unanswered text isn't just a personal slight, it's an unconscious loyalty to that family system. You are repeating the silent contracts of your ancestors, where emotional voids were the language of love. You may even unconsciously choose partners who, in their own way, replicate this pattern because it's familiar, because it feels like home. Or perhaps your family system was of unspoken secrets and half-truths. A family member was unfaithful or disappeared without a word, and the wound was never acknowledged or healed. This systemic trauma, this ghost in the family tree, can cause you to become hyper-vigilant in your own relationships. An unanswered message, even a simple one, triggers the fear of that ancestral wound. You are not just reacting to your partner's silence, you are reacting to the silence of a generation. The unreturned text is a symbolic reenactment of the historical neglect and betrayal that was never processed, and you are trying, unconsciously, to finish a conversation that was never allowed to begin. A third example might be a family where conflict was the primary form of connection. In this system, silence was a tool of punishment, a way to control and manipulate others. A parent might have given the silent treatment to a child to punish them. In adulthood, the child of this system might be hypersensitive to the slightest pause in communication. An unanswered message isn't just an inconvenience, it's a terrifying return to that place of emotional punishment. They may desperately try to provoke a response, even a negative one, because a fight feels safer and more familiar than the cold, controlling silence. The psychology of reciprocity and standards. Beyond these deep-seated psychological wounds, the modern dilemma of the unanswered message forces us to confront a fundamental truth about relational dynamics, the importance of reciprocity and standards. The act of sending a text is a bid for connection, and a healthy relationship is defined by a consistent pattern of these bids being met with effort. When a message is consistently left unread, it is a form of low-effort communication, and our reaction to it reveals our own internal standards. Many of us, especially those with anxious or disorganized attachment patterns, have been conditioned to believe we must chase, over-explain, and earn a response. We've been taught to accept scraps of attention as a full meal. A healthy, self-respecting perspective, however, understands that consistent, reciprocal communication is not a bonus. It is a fundamental requirement of a high-value partnership. The silence, therefore, is not a test of our patience, but a signal, a red flag indicating a potential lack of emotional availability, respect, or investment. This perspective challenges us to shift our focus from a question of what did I do wrong to a statement of what are my standards for how I want to be treated. It's a move from internal self-blame to external boundary setting. Instead of compulsively sending another message to fill the void, we are empowered to sit with the silence and observe the other person's behavior without making excuses for it. A partner who is truly invested will make the effort. They will respond in a timely manner, or, if they are busy, they will communicate that. These consistent, small acts of communication are a form of a green flag, a signal that this person values you and the connection you share. The lack of these signals over time is a clear sign that you are not being prioritized, and it is a painful but necessary intelligence to act on.
From a neurological perspective, the unanswered message is a powerful stressor that hijacks our brain's reward and threat systems. When we send a message, our brain anticipates a response. This anticipation is fueled by dopamine, the neurotransmitter associated with reward and pleasure. The act of sending a text and waiting for a reply is, in essence, a miniature behavioral loop of seeking and reward. When a reply arrives, we get a small hit of dopamine, reinforcing the connection. The release of oxytocin, the bonding hormone, further deepens our feeling of safety and connection. When the reply doesn't come, our brain experiences a dopamine drought. The reward is withheld, and our brain enters a state of high arousal. The limbic system, responsible for our emotions and threat response, goes into overdrive. Our amygdala, the brain's fear center, sounds the alarm. Our nervous system, sensing a potential threat to our connection and our sense of survival, activates a fight or flight response. Our heart rate quickens, our breathing becomes shallow, and we begin to ruminate. We're not just hurt, we're in a state of biological distress. The unanswered text feels like a physical threat because to our ancient brain, social connection is a matter of survival. This initial stress response is quickly followed by the release of cortisol, the primary stress hormone. High levels of cortisol flood our system, keeping us in a state of hypervigilance, making it difficult to think rationally or calm down. This is why our prefrontal cortex, the part of the brain responsible for logic, self-regulation, and problem-solving, gets hijacked by our emotional brain. We can't think clearly. Instead of rationalizing the silence, we spiral into a state of panic. The work of neuroscientists shows us that when our nervous system feels unsafe, our ability to connect and communicate shuts down. We become prisoners to our own reactive brain, and the silence becomes a symbol of our lack of control. Shame, vulnerability, and the art of loving. The insights on vulnerability and shame are crucial here. The act of sending a heartfelt text is an act of vulnerability. We are putting a piece of ourselves out there and hoping for a reciprocal response. When the reply doesn't come, it's a perceived rejection of our vulnerable self. This can trigger a deep sense of shame, the feeling that we are fundamentally unworthy of a response. Shame tells us, I am the problem. I am unlovable. The unanswered text becomes a tangible confirmation of this painful inner voice. This dilemma also challenges us to consider the concept of the art of loving, where love is not a passive feeling, but an active practice. This perspective distinguishes between immature love, which says, I love you because I need you, and mature love, which says, I need you because I love you. The painful wait for an unanswered text is a manifestation of immature love, where our sense of self is so dependent on external validation that we need their reply to feel whole. A mature response, honed through conscious self-love and self-soothing, would be to practice the art of loving ourselves first. It is to acknowledge the pain, but not allow the external silence to dictate our internal state. This is the ultimate psychological challenge, to learn to be okay with our own worth, even when the rest of the world is momentarily silent. Rewriting the narrative. Breaking free from the painful loop of the unanswered message requires a deliberate and conscious rewriting of our internal narrative. This isn't about controlling the other person, it's about reclaiming your own power and rewriting the sacred contracts you've unconsciously signed. It is a journey from reactivity to conscious response, a move from being a passenger in your emotional life to taking the wheel. Phase 1. The witness. The first step is to become a witness to your own pain, without judgment. When the read receipt appears and the silence begins, you must learn to pause. Do not immediately react by sending a second message or spiraling into a catastrophic thought pattern. Instead, turn your focus inward. What is your nervous system doing? Is your heart racing? Is a knot forming in your stomach? What is the voice in your head saying? This phase is about observing your own emotional and physical responses with radical compassion. You are not the feeling. You are the one who is feeling it. To become the witness, you must first become aware of the physical and mental triggers. The physical response. You feel a sudden, hollow clenching in your stomach, a physical signal of anxiety. Your breath becomes shallow and hurried, and your shoulders tense up. Instead of ignoring these sensations, you acknowledge them. You say to yourself, I feel my stomach clenching. I see my breath is shallow. This is what my body does when it feels a lack of certainty. You are simply observing the data of your own experience without assigning it meaning. The mental narrative. You hear the familiar voice of self-doubt whispering in your mind. It says, you're bothering them, or this is proof they don't care, or you're too much. Instead of believing this voice, you simply witness it. You say, I hear the story that I am too much. That is an old story and it is being triggered right now. You separate the voice from the truth. The emotional echo. The feeling in your chest is a profound sense of shame or loneliness that feels much bigger than this one text. You recognize it as a familiar echo from your past, a time when you felt unseen or ignored by a loved one. You can say, this is not just about this message. This is the echo of the child who felt invisible. I am here with that part of me now. You must witness the inner child who is panicking, the ancestral wounds that is being triggered, and the dopamine drought that your brain is experiencing. The goal here is not to fix it, but to acknowledge it. This is where you can say to yourself, I see you. This hurts. I am here with you. It is in this quiet act of witnessing that you begin to separate your identity from the external validation of a reply. Your worth isn't contingent on their response. Phase 2. The reclaimer. Once you have witnessed the pain, the next phase is to become the reclaimer of your own sense of self. This is where you begin to challenge the old narrative. The old story told you that silence meant rejection. The new story must be one of self-trust and self-worth. You must ask yourself, what if their silence is not about me? What if it's about their own internal world, their own chaos, their own struggles? And even if it is about me, does their single action have the power to define my worth? This phase is about actively challenging the internal script. Instead of allowing the silence to be a verdict on your value, you must reclaim your narrative. You are the protagonist, not the victim. Challenging the narrative. Instead of allowing the thought, I must have done something wrong, to dominate your mind, you actively replace it. You can say aloud, my worth is not determined by their reply. My message was a kind bid for connection, and that stands on its own merit. You are actively writing a new self-affirming script. Self-soothing and regulation. You reclaim control over your nervous system. You can physically place your hand on your heart or stomach, a gesture of self-compassion, and take 3 deep, slow breaths to regulate your body. This simple, conscious act of grounding signals to your brain that you are safe even in the absence of a reply. This is a powerful, non-verbal way of telling yourself, I am enough. Reclaiming your energy. You take the energy you would have spent in anxious waiting and redirect it. Instead of staring at your phone, you put it down and actively engage in a hobby or task that brings you joy. Baking, reading, working out, or calling a friend who you know will be happy to hear from you. This is a physical act of reclaiming the time and emotional energy you would have otherwise given away.
This phase is where you remind yourself that you are the one who is in charge of your own emotional state and that you do not need their validation to feel whole. You're building an internal sanctuary that no read receipt can violate. Phase 3. The weaver. The final phase is to become the weaver of a new connection that is built from the inside out. This phase is about learning to communicate your needs and establish healthy boundaries, not from a place of fear, but from a place of self-respect. The old pattern was to anxiously wait for a reply, to demand a connection. The new pattern is to communicate your needs clearly and calmly, the I statement. You learn to express your feelings without making accusations. Instead of saying, "Why didn't you reply to me? You always do this," you use a new, more effective language. You might say, "I notice that when I send you a message and don't hear back, I start to feel anxious and insecure. It's a pattern from my past that I'm working on, and I would love for us to find a communication rhythm that feels good for both of us." This is not an accusation. It is an invitation to a shared solution. Setting a boundary. You express a clear, actionable boundary that protects your emotional well-being. For example, you can communicate a need like, "I'd appreciate a quick text if you're going to be unavailable for a while, just so I know you're okay. It helps me to not worry." This is a loving way of establishing a new, healthier, sacred contract for the relationship. It's an act of self-care that a truly respectful partner will be happy to honor. Modeling new behavior. You become the person who is consistent and communicative yourself. You don't let your own messages sit unanswered. You respond in a timely, thoughtful way, demonstrating with your actions the kind of reciprocity you desire. This is a powerful form of teaching, a silent signal that shows others what a healthy, high-effort connection looks like. You are weaving a new sacred contract that honors your needs and respects your emotional landscape. It's about teaching them how to love you, and more importantly, it's about teaching yourself that you are worthy of a love that is reciprocal, consistent, and seen.
But what if in that agonizing space between the read receipt and the silence, the true turning point wasn't a reply at all? What if it was the moment you finally chose to stop waiting for a message and instead sent one to yourself? This is the moment when you recognize that the emotional chaos isn't a flaw in you, but a signal, a cry from your nervous system to be seen and soothed. It's a profound shift from a place of helpless waiting to a place of empowered action. The turning point is the quiet, sacred choice to pause when your hand reaches for the phone and say, "Not this time." It's the conscious act of identifying the knot in your stomach and whispering, "This isn't fear of abandonment. This is an echo of my past, and I am here for it now." This is where the old unconscious script begins to fray. It's a moment of radical self-trust, where you practice a single deep breath to calm your system, actively reminding yourself that your worth is not a variable to be confirmed by an external source. You realize that the power to regulate your own emotional state is a superpower no one can take away. From this place of self-possession, you can begin to communicate, not from a place of accusation, but from a space of vulnerability. It's the moment you choose to use an I statement to express a need, turning an old cycle of blame into a new pathway for authentic connection. The turning point is the realization that your journey isn't about controlling them, it's about reclaiming yourself. And in that moment, the silent message loses its power to define you. It is simply a message, and you are simply whole. Conclusion and reflection. So ask yourself, where did you first learn that your voice was not important enough to be heard? What old emotional debt are you still trying to pay with your anxious energy and desperate waiting? What would it feel like to love without needing constant external validation? To be so secure in your own worth that another person's silence is simply a quiet moment in the day, not a thunderclap of rejection. Maybe the most radical thing you can do when you see that silent red message is to stay calm, to stay with yourself, and to love the part of you that still feels so unseen. This is a declaration of self-sufficiency, a moment of radical trust in your own ability to be your own anchor. This journey isn't about fixing your partner. It's about remembering your own wholeness so that when a reply does come, it's a beautiful, joyful addition to a life that is already full, not a necessary condition for it to begin. It's about shifting from a place of deficit to a place of abundance. The moment you stop meeting the reply to feel whole is the very moment you become ready for a connection that honors your entirety. Have you recognized yourself or a pattern you experienced in the world of the unanswered reply? What steps are you taking? Or what insights have you gained on your journey to reclaim your power and set healthier communication boundaries? Share your experiences and reflections in the comments below, and let's continue to unravel the heart of modern connection, one insightful thread at a time. If this stirred something in you, subscribe to Love Threads. We're not here to fix you, we're here to remember who you are.